Why do people go back to smoking cigarettes? Let's take a look at a subject that is often overlooked because most of the time, especially on my channel and the things I do, what I'm trying to generally do is to encourage current cigarette smokers to consider to stop smoking. And then what happens though after the fact? What happens once a cigarette smoker has made that choice and been successful? So at least for some period of time, and I would think here that once somebody has, well, first of all, let me backtrack a little bit. It is really true. Within a day or a couple of days at max, the nicotine craving part is generally out of one's system. At that point, it's a mental game. What you need to do is you need to take control of your mind and you got to say to yourself, look, just because I'm getting in the car, I don't have to light up a cigarette. Just because I finished eating, I don't have to light up a cigarette. So, with that all said, once a person's past all that, and I think in my experience and what I've seen with other people, is once you've got a month, say, under your belt, you are well past smoking. I mean, it's not on the radar screen anymore. You've gotten used to doing most of your activities. You've driven to work. You've been at work. You've done recreational things on a weekend. You've gotten up many times and not had a cigarette. You went to bed many times and had a cigarette. You're past that. Now, again, the minute you take your last cigarette, you are an ex-smoker. So, let me make that clear as well. So, what happens, let's say in the case that after not smoking for a month, and it's probably in most of these cases, you're probably talking, it might be a year. I mean, I've known people that have gone 5 years and not had a cigarette, and then for one reason or another, they went back to it. So let's take a quick look at some of those things. And again, if this in any way, shape, or form is your situation, please give a lot of thought to this before you pick up that cigarette. So why do people go back to smoking cigarettes? I think probably one of the most common causes is stress or anxiety. And basically, smoking is a way to cope with that. I mean, when you smoke cigarettes, the nicotine goes in your body. You do have that certain feeling that every smoker feels when that satisfaction, if you will, when you have a craving and you need more nicotine and you smoke that cigarette, you have that aha moment, at least for maybe 20 minutes or so. Of course, we know that that's not the goal. It's not what you want to do, but it is true. That does happen. And I often found that at times that in my own life, when I was a smoker, at those times that were most stressful or I was feeling the most anxiety, the thing I wanted to do most was light up a cigarette at that point. I'm sure you as a smoker felt the same. So it becomes sort of, I'll say, a knee-jerk reaction that once the stress is on, the pressure's on, the cigarette is out of the pack and you're lighting up. So I think that that's certainly a consideration that's one of the main reasons I think that ex-smokers could potentially fall back into the cigarette pattern and become smokers again. Now, what are some of the causes of that? It might be family problems. It might be people going through a divorce. It might be people, that have ill family members or sick family members. It might be people who are having problems with a child that's not listening, or a relationship within their family. It could be difficulty at work. Maybe you got passed over for a promotion. Maybe a coworker is not treating you right. Maybe it's even more serious. Maybe there's even people based on sex or race or other things, or age. Maybe they're not being treated fairly in the workplace, and maybe there is a real issue there. But anyway, difficulty at work is certainly a potential for somebody that's an ex-smoker to go back to smoking, and they need to be careful for that. Basically, life changes. Any life changes somebody may have. Again, they got married, they got divorced, they had a baby, they lost someone close to them. They possibly they moved. Things like that. They changed jobs. Any things that have upset the apple cart and are now putting you in a little more, again, creating anxiety and stress for you, you're probably more likely to consider smoking. And if you're an ex-smoker, you definitely need to be conscious of those things so you don't fall into that trap. Even traveling, somebody that may have to travel and they're not used to it, again, it's a stressful thing for them. They may have that want to pick up a cigarette, and they may say, well, I'll only smoke a couple days, and then once it's done, I'll be fine. You can't fall into that trap. Now, another reason why some people go back to smoking is that, and it is not uncommon that when somebody stops smoking, they really have to watch that they don't gain weight. I've certainly had some of that challenge myself, and I still have that challenge. But oftentimes, that I did find when I was a cigarette smoker, I didn't have the same hunger. It could be because things didn't taste the same. It could be you were just the hunger was not as important as the craving feeling. So when you smoked, you were like, okay, well, I don't really have to eat right now. I can eat later. But the important thing there is people do sometimes gain weight after they stop smoking. So the reverse is not true. Don't start smoking again to lose weight. That's the moral of that. It's not the best way to do it. If you need to lose weight, there's other ways to do it. Don't go back to smoking. Another big reason for people to start smoking again is being around other people that are smokers. I mean, it's very difficult if you have 4 or 5 friends you hang out with, and you quit smoking, and you're the only one that doesn't smoke. And everywhere you go, they're smoking. You get in the car, they're smoking. You're at somebody's house, they're smoking. You're camping, they're smoking. It is going to be really difficult for you to not smoke when you're still breathing it, and all your friends are doing it. That's a real challenge, and that's a consideration you really have to take a long look at. It is possible you may have to find other friends. It could just be something that you have to break yourself free, because that's going to be a real challenge. And I would say one of the last things too is that if somebody is a social drinker, alcohol and cigarettes for smokers go together. A person has a beer, they want a cigarette. They have a glass of wine, they want a cigarette. They have a whiskey, they want a cigarette. They kind of go hand in hand with smokers. And if somebody is an ex-smoker and they go to a bar, now granted, many bars you're not allowed to smoke these days, but the point is once somebody's had a couple of drinks, it may not seem all that bad to them if they decide to pick up a cigarette and do it at that point. So if you're a social drinker or any kind of drinker, you need to make sure you keep that line in the sand that you don't cross over. Now, I would just suggest, after we've looked at all these different things, and I'm sure there's many more, if you really are an ex-smoker and you really are feeling some of these challenges in your life sufficient enough that you would actually consider going back to smoking, it may be best for you to look for professional help, talk to a professional, reach out to somebody that can help you with the stresses that you're feeling and the anxiety you're feeling. Maybe somebody that can help you, point you in a new direction. But don't just silently suffer and make that choice to go back to smoking, because once you pick up that first cigarette, just as when you smoke your last cigarette, you become an ex-smoker. When you smoke that first cigarette, you are now on the other side again, you're a smoker. And once you're on the smoking side again, then you got the whole process to do all over again with quitting, to move on and get healthy and such like that. So bottom line of everything, that if you are somebody that for any reason whatsoever is considering to go back to cigarette smoking after you quit, get help, do whatever you need, talk to family, talk to friends, talk to a professional. Don't go back to smoking. I look forward to seeing you stay an ex-smoker.